We made a huge mistake no gardener should ever make. Our greenhouse and our garden back here are without a convenient, reliable source of water, and that's a huge problem that we need to address immediately. We do have this rain catchment system, but after nearly 2 months of flooding rains, it looks like we're heading into our typical midsummer dry spell. And when this thing dries up, so will our garden.
And that means when all of our plants die, we'll also lose all of our produce that we use for our canning and home cooking, which means everything that we've done up to this point will have been for nothing, a complete waste of time. Thankfully, there's a well close by to where we're doing all of our gardening, but the well currently does not work, and that's because it used to be connected to the old farmhouse that was a part of the original farmstead, which has since been removed. So that means that this well has no source of power, it has no pressure tank, and the water lines run to nowhere. In order to fix these problems, I'm digging down to the bottom of the electrical conduit so we can run a new power source, and I need to dig down to the pitless adapter so we can run new water lines. To the left-hand side of the well, there is an old hydrant, which is where they got their water from the outside. We're assuming that at the bottom of that hydrant is where the pitless adapter is located. However, I'm not sure. And to make things even more difficult, this is a dug well, so the entire outside of the well casing is surrounded by fairly large boulders, which makes it even more difficult to dig near the well and not cause some sort of damage.
Look, you're right over the pipe, Ray J, now. You're right over the pipe.
All right, I saw it wiggling. So I luckily did not snag the pipe, but I exposed almost the entire thing.
All right, so it's at this point right here that something just didn't look right to me. I'm trying to find the pitless adapter, but I'm not seeing it. What happened? Did I break it off? Is it still deeper yet? Where is this thing? It's not at the bottom of this pipe.
So it looks like I lucked out. The side that we thought the pitless adapter on, which was off of the standpipe over here, which goes on the left side, high-end side of the pipe, is not where the pitless adapter is. The pitless adapter is over here on the right-hand side of the well casing. So I'm glad I did not hook that at any point. My dad's not really sure when the last time that this was revamped for the old farmhouse, but he said he never remembered them digging it up and putting on plastic water pipe. First thing we're gonna do here is get this black water pipe off. Water in the pipe yet.
I'll give you a utility knife and my jackknife, and you can cut that piece of pipe off.
That wasn't even tight. I'm surprised. Well, that's probably where all the water leaking was coming from, right from the ground.
Try to use the same spot all the time, and I'll get you a channel out so you can try to hopefully cut down to the burr.
How's that for following the same line every time, huh? Not very good. Oh, I can feel the barbs.
Okay, that's good.
If I could squeeze it enough, there, I can see it's splitting open. There we go.
Perfect.
Ooh, nice. Turns. It turns. I got it turned by hand now. There it is. Okay, it's coming.
Okay, perfect. Just like I planned.
I might be able to get this off my hand now.
You might be able to get it with your hand now. Nice and solid.
All right, perfect.
Okay, now AJ, I'm gonna get you the brass tack.
Okay, it is dangerous being down in here. You know, if that thing were to let loose or fall out, that would be some probably not good news for me. So now we're just gonna cap this nipple off that comes out of the side of the pitless adapter just to keep everything protected. We don't wanna knock that off when we start digging out toward the garage. Otherwise, we'll have to start all over with the pitless adapter too.
And what's nice about the stage, it's got that roundness on it, so it'll stay and put for you.
Alrighty, that should be good enough. So now we have the pitless adapter capped off and semi-protected for digging. We need to start thinking about some of the fittings that we're going to need for this project, and we have an incredibly difficult decision to make. Do we want to future-proof this thing, and if so, at what cost? But before I get into detail in that, we're going to dig out the rest of this waterline trench so that way I can show you better what we have going on.
I will tell you the reason this decision is so difficult is because the whole project is really just about trying to get a convenient, reliable source of water for our garden. But as long as we're going to have the ground dug up like this, it's a decision worth considering to minimize future disturbances to the well and plumbing. The problem is, the option comes at an additional $500 cost.
The first thing we're going to do here is turn a T onto our pipe fitting coming off of our pitless adapter that's in the well. So right here we have a line that will have a barb fitting that will go to the potential for a future home, and then this line coming out of here will run to the garage, which will feed a pressure tank until a future home ever gets added here, if one ever gets added. But we need to have a pressure tank in order for the well system to work, and the pressure tank for the well has to go in the garage. Now we have our barb fitting on for the house. We're going to add on a nipple to the end of this T and another T after. And this T will provide the hydrant that will be going up to the surface, and then we'll have our line that feeds into the garage. So now we've got our second T on, we're just going to start tightening up our fitting for our nipple and extension for the riser that would go to the hydrant. Now in the end of this, we're going to put another brass nipple, and we did decide to go with the curb stop. Now thankfully we ended up saving ourselves a little bit of cash on this because I already have a curb stop at my residence, and I have the key to operate this thing from at the ground level. So we didn't have to pay $100 for a key that we didn't need, so we were able to get this for a little bit cheaper than what we were expecting or what we were initially told. Now the benefit to this curb stop here is that we will have a live water source to the house. At some point when the house gets connected, we'll have a live water source at the hydrant above the ground, and we'll be able to shut this valve off that goes to the garage. So at the end of the year, when winter's about ready to come, we can flush this line or blow this line out as empty as possible and prevent any water from freezing in at the pressure tank source in the garage. We're going to put on the rod that turns it on and off from up above. All right, we'll see what happens there.
Okay. Got it. Just hand tighten that, AJ.
Down on top of that.
Oh, this is perfect height, AJ.
Come on. What would you bite? All right. So now we're going to put our barb fitting in at the end of our curb stop valve. I would say that's probably got to be tight enough. Okay, that's level. And that's level. Perfect. Right now we're going to soften up our pipe so we can get it pushed onto the barb fitting. We've already got 2 hose clamps ready to go. That is code for any plumbing that gets done like this out here, at least for us. Push, 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 push. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So our plan is we're going to backfill a little bit of gravel underneath all of this stuff, and then we have a old silo stave from a concrete silo that we used to have up here at one time, way before my time. And we're going to lay that underneath just to give this some extra support, so when everything gets backfilled, the pressure from above does not put a bunch of pressure on all these fittings. I got our hose clamps on, double hose clamped, and we have our drip. This is a frost-free hydrant here, so that way the water can drain back down the pipe, and out here there's a stop inside the valve, so the water flow stops, cuts off here. The water can come back down the pipe, drain out, so nothing freezes up in the wintertime, so that's good. All right.
That should be good, right?
I'm thinking. All right, so we're just getting this last line done here for the house supply line. So we got our water line, or our water source for the well to the garage. Ran all the way down. We actually dug a hole underneath the garage floor here, drilled a hole through with some mason bits, and now we have our water pipe running up through, ready to be hooked up to a pressure tank. Unfortunately, this isn't how I wanted things to end. I was really hoping we were going to be able to get more done and maybe even possibly backfill, but we have some fast approaching storms moving in from the north and the west, and we're not about to take the chance of getting rained on, lightninged on. It's supposed to be pretty severe. Right now we have the trench mostly filled up to the way we want it with gravel from the garage all the way down to the curb stop and the hydrant pipe that comes up above the ground right here. However, we would have liked to have also ran our electrical conduit and electrical from the pump to the garage. We didn't get that done. Unfortunately, I don't know what's going to happen after this rain comes. It could make this a complete utter mess, and I'm not happy about it. We're gonna have to see what happens tomorrow. We had some really heavy rains last night, and as you can see right now, our trench has a bunch of water in it up toward the garage. To top things off, we didn't have a tarp large enough to cover this pile of clay. Really was hoping that it wasn't going to be that bad of a storm, but it washed a bunch of our clay down into our hole. So now that we had all that nice gravel before, it's all now covered up with clay. So today it's super critical that we get some good progress made on this project because, well, as you can see all around us again, we have some storms coming in. And this time it would really be nice to have this all filled in before it rains and fills this trench up with water again. But right now we have to get this pump hooked up and at least test to see if this thing is going to work. And then we need to test our connections to make sure that we don't have any leaks down inside the trench. So testing out this well pump is going to be a little bit tricky, actually a lot of it tricky, because we don't have any power running into the garage right now. So that means we're going to have to try to fire this up on a generator. So I'm trying to get the wiring and the plug ready. So it looks like things just went from bad to worse. We just hooked up the wiring and the plug to our generator, and we could hear the draw on the generator, but we didn't get any water at the surface. That pump's been sitting down there for quite some time, so it's a very good possibility that the thing is rusted tight and it just may not be working. We're gonna have to pull the pump now and see what's going on. Just kidding, the pump does work. We were just being stupid and we didn't have the control box added on there. This is a 3-wire pump, and because it's a 3-wire pump, it needs to have that control box. Not exactly sure what it does, but it must boost the electricity going down to that pump somehow. Running directly off the generator just wasn't enough to give it enough oomph to actually pump. So just kidding again, we may have just fried the pump in our well now this time. So this morning while I was at work, my parents had a professional well driller come up here just to take a look at things. He was the one that told us that we have to have that control box on for a 3-wire pump to work. And he did warn us that before we ran it for too long, we probably really should pull the pump up and make sure we check the screens just to make sure that they're not plugged or that there's not anything that would inhibit water flow into the pump and cause more problems. Well, when I got home, water was circulating already, and it was left on circulating for probably another half hour after that. When I got home, water flow was minimal coming out of the hose. Half an hour later, water flow was nothing coming out of the hose. So if you've never seen a pump get pulled from a well before, you're about to see this for the first time. Okay. So at the top of the pitless adapter, there's a little threaded cup for a pipe like this to be able to be turned into it. And then this is how we pull the pump, or pull all of the lines of water pipe out along with the pump.
The big problem with slide pitless adapters is that they seem to become very wedged after many years of being undisturbed, and this well is no exception. I don't even know if I was alive the last time that this pitless adapter was pulled, but my dad said he remembered it not being very easy then. And after the two of us sat here and struggled and decided we're not going to be able to pull this by hand, we decided to go get the track loader and use hydraulic power. Now, the only big problem with hydraulic power is that we all know hydraulics don't give up until something usually breaks. And that would be at the weakest link, which would probably be something at the well. So let's hope we don't break anything using hydraulics.
It's actually tipping me forward as I put pressure on that T. There it is.
So even though we thought we had this thing knocked loose, apparently we didn't. So I had to give it another shot with the sledgehammer.
Oh no.
Oh no.
That is the pitless adapter without the water line and pump. We had to use the wire to pull up the pump until we got a hold of the water line.
You know what they did, AJ, though? They put a plastic burr bit on there. We're not doing that. We're putting a steel one on there.
Smell the chlorine.
I can smell the chlorine.
I'm gonna straighten this out.
The plastic burr fitting that my dad was referring to is actually the plastic barbed fitting that was in the end of the pitless adapter, which attached to the water line that attached to the pump down below in the well. It was that barbed fitting that snapped in half and separated the water line from the pitless adapter.
Whew. Oh, we did it, guys.
Looking back at this now, I didn't grasp the seriousness of the situation that day. That's the end of the pitless adapter that our pipe was threaded into, which broke in half when we were wailing on the bottom of the pallet forks trying to use the track loader to get this whole assembly loose. If that would have sheared off entirely from the end of our pipe, we would have lost that part of the pitless adapter 50 feet down at the bottom of the well, which would have pretty much ended this entire project.
So now that we finally have this pump out, you can see, so there's screens underneath of these spots where there's really heavy rust deposits, and because we weren't able to get any water in this thing while we were running it, there's a chance we may have wrecked this pump because it wasn't getting adequate water flow. So this is a part of our slide pitless adapter. In the top here is where you turn your pull pipe, and that's how you can pull the entire pump out of the well casing. In the bottom here, this is where the water line from the pump runs into. There's a piece that's in the side of the well casing that's kind of got flanges on it. It's kind of hooked kind of like this. And you take this piece here and it actually slides down inside and it locks in up against the side of the well casing. And that's what we had to do, is pull that out of that other half of the pitless adapter. And then this is the line that the water flows up through, and then it comes out the side of the well casing here.
It's finally time to get everything all hooked up. This is our new used pump, and we're replacing all of the plastic barbed fittings with brass barbed fittings. The only way to go, to make it tough. And then we're going to use the same wire that was originally in the well, but this is a 3-wire, so we're not going to need that yellow one. We're just going to be using the red and the black wires for power, and then a green for ground. And then we're just finishing this all up by using a heat-activated shrink tube to make sure everything is completely watertight and sealed.
We've got all of our connections made. Now we went to, the old pump was a 3-wire pump. We're going to go to a 2-wire pump. It's going to be a lot easier for our purpose because the other one needed a control box in order for that 3-wire pump to work. So now going down to a 2-wire pump, we just have our 2 hots and our 1 ground. Is it going to work? That is the big question. We've got a recovery cable on there in case something breaks, that we got an extra way to pull this pump back up, not have to pull it up by the electrical wires like the last one. Ready to rock and roll. Let's dunk her in. All right, we are going to plug in the generator and start it up, and we're going to see if we get pressure. Oh, we got pressure building.
I didn't know it was still on.
All right. We got it. We got pressure coming up. All right, Rikki, it's finally time. Let's give it a whirl and see if it works.
Let's go.
All right, we finally have water for our garden after all of the troubles and struggles that we went through. But this isn't the only problem we had in the garden this year. We thought these lasagna beds were going to be a great idea, and we ran into some big problems that we didn't expect with these things.
Check out this video right here to see what we're talking about.